So at some point, it might be wise to mute yourselves. So when Rabbi Schlesinger teaches, we don't hear phones or dogs or dishwashers or things like that, and just trying to create that atmosphere, which I often talk about at Minyan, of a makom kadosh, of creating holy space, and zman kadosh, which Heschel used to talk about, a holy time. So when we study Torah, even its broadest sense, we're not studying Parshat Shavua right now, but we are studying Jewish Torah, that we are all able to hear and learn. So Rabbi Schlesinger also has a law degree in addition to having studied and graduated from the Machon Schechter, the Schechter Institute in Jerusalem. And since 2005, he's been the rabbi. It's easier for me just to say it CIP because my Spanish is zero and I'm not going to. Portuguese. My Portuguese is -0. So I'm just not going to pretend to pronounce the name of your shul. And involved with not only leading a very significant congregation, but also involved with interfaith work as well. So today he's going to talk about Jews of Brazil. And I would say it's a topic that a lot of people do not know a lot about. But certainly Jews have lived in Brazil for many, many centuries. And we are, there's an expression in Hebrew, kulanu ozen, we're all ears. And Rabbi Schlesinger, we look forward to hearing and learning from you. And at some point, Keith is going to do a Q&A at the end of your presentation.
Great. Thank you very much, Rabbi Resnick, for this presentation. Thank you, Keith, for organizing this Lunch and Learn opportunity. Thank you, Lisa, for reading my presentation beforehand and helping me with English issues. So for Jews, Brazil began as a place of opportunity and became, over the centuries, the rich and varied culture that we know today. World history, for instance, in the form of the Inquisition, or more recently, anti-Semitic events inspired by the conflict between Israel and Lebanon in 2006, affected the Jewish community. But on the whole, the growth of Jewish community was positive. Jewish life in Brazil goes back to the 15th century. Although the first Jews came from Portugal, over time, Jews from countries as varied as Egypt, Morocco, Lebanon, Russia, Poland, Germany, and Italy settled in Brazil. The Jewish community in Brazil today draws from a very varied heritage, and we have the 9th largest Jewish population in the world. Around 100,000 Jews live in Brazil. Someone's microphone is open, I think. I hear something in the background. Okay, let's go on. The new Christians and the beginnings of Brazil. This is the first part. Yes, still there is some noise. Yeah, great. Thank you. Jews first arrived in Brazil after being expelled from Spain in 1492. After centuries of coexistence of the Jews, Muslims, and Christians in the Iberian Peninsula, the Jews who choose not to convert to Christianity could no longer live in Spain. The exodus took place towards North Africa, Italy, and the Ottoman Empire, but many of them went to Portugal. There in 1497, they were forcibly converted to the Christian faith, becoming known as New Christians. In addition to the number of Jews of Spanish origin who took refuge in Portugal, the percentage of Jews already there at the time of forced conversion may have reached 10% of total population, an amount unmatched in any other country until the creation of the State of Israel. Along with the Portuguese settlers, a large number of new Christians arrived in Brazil, whether or not they remained attached to their Judaism. Second part, freedom in Dutch Brazil. The conquest of Recife, a large port city, by the Dutch in 1630, began a short but important period in the Brazilian imagination and in the history of Judaism. Due to the freedom of faith granted by the Dutch Calvinist government, several Jews of Portuguese and Spanish origin arrived in Brazil. They had originally escaped from the Iberian Peninsula and settled in Amsterdam and other cities where there was no Inquisition. They constituted a culturally unique community, which became known as the Nation of Portuguese Jews. It was these Jews who often had family ties and even commercial relationships with new Christians from Brazil, who composed the first Jewish normative community and built the first official synagogue in the Americas in 1636 in Recife. It was called Tzur Israel and gathered all the Jews of the Dutch Northeast Brazil into one congregation. In 1654, the Portuguese reconquered Recife. All the Jews who so wished were able to return safely to Holland. Those who remained on Brazil's soil, those who let themselves stray, had to convert or return to Catholicism, becoming the target of the inquisitors. In 1654, some Brazilian Jews on their way back to Holland were blown off course, ending up in Cuba. They then sailed again and asked for sanctuary in New York City, then New Amsterdam. The governor was a notorious anti-Semite, but he accepted a bribe and allowed those Brazilian Jews to remain. Their descendants are still in the US and are quite proud of their heritage. Third part, in the times of the Inquisition. The impact of the Inquisition on Jews and former Jews was highly negative. Between the 13th and 19th centuries, various institutions acted to eliminate what was considered heresy by the Catholic Church. The Inquisition had as its main target the descendants of Jews who, even baptized, were accused of Judaizing. But it persecuted all those who were considered bad Catholics, sorcerers, blasphemers, Protestants, Christians who practiced Islam, but also those who practiced bigamy or homosexuals. Those who did not confess their mistakes or their heresies and did not denounce their fellows could end up at the stake. However, most of the defendants of the Inquisition were punished by the confiscation of their property, the penalty of exile, including from Brazil, and various spiritual penances. Among the Inquisition's main instruments of terror was secrecy. The person did not know why he was being arrested or who had denounced them. This secrecy, fear, and torture provoked many false testimonies that turned into arrest warrants. In Brazil, where there was no formal court of the Inquisition, members of the clergy and local representatives of the Inquisition were responsible for collecting denunciations and executing the arrest warrants. The accused were then sent to Lisbon. Most of the defendants of the Portuguese Inquisition were new Christians. Part 4, the Jews in Imperial Brazil. It was only after the independence of Brazil from Portugal in 1822 that the Jews began to return to the country. During the imperial period, there were two flows of Jews entering Brazil. Jews from England and France arrived at the court in Rio de Janeiro and the center south of the country, mainly to work in medium and large-scale trade. More numerically and institutionally organized, Jews from Morocco came to the Amazon region to work in small and medium-scale trade. The first synagogues and Jewish institutions were created in Belém and Rio de Janeiro in the 19th century. Fifth part, Brazil enters the route of Jewish immigration, major Jewish immigration chains. Brazil became an important destination for European Jewish immigrants from the 1910s and on a larger scale in the 1920s and 30s, when the United States, Canada, and Argentina established quotas and restrictions on immigration. The years of the most intense Jewish immigration to Brazil were between 1926 and 1935, when more than 35,000 Jews arrived in the country. Until the beginning of the new state, instituted in 1937, there was no specific impediment to the entry of Jews, unlike occurred in relation to several other groups. The majority of Jewish immigrants came from Eastern Europe, and the most prominent nationality among the Jewish immigrants who arrived in São Paulo was Polish, like my grandparents. Other important groups came from Russia, Bessarabia, Lithuania, Ukraine, and other countries. In the 1920s, immigrants also came from the Middle East, the region of Lebanon and Syria, as well as places that had been part of the Ottoman Empire. As of 1933, about 15,000 Jews from Germany arrived in São Paulo, Rio de Janeiro, and Porto Alegre, fleeing the rise of Nazism. Immigrants from Austria also arrived in Brazil, as well as from Italy, where anti-Semitic laws excluded Jews from various jobs and sectors of society. Sixth part, Rabbi Fritz Pincus, the establishment of a Jewish congregation in São Paulo during the so-called Estado Novo. The history of Jewish life in Brazil and my current synagogue in particular is interwoven with the life's work of one special individual. Living in Germany in 1933, the newly formed rabbi and doctor of philosophy, Fritz Pincus, then 28, had a chance to glimpse the events ahead. He felt that after the 1936 Summer Olympics in Berlin, there would be no future for the Jews in that country. Although he later confessed that it would have been impossible to anticipate the extent of the tragedy that struck German Judaism. In his memoir, Studying, Teaching, Helping, he recalls that he warned the directors of his congregation in Heidelberg to leave the country. Many German Jews fully integrated into that society did not believe that they could become the target of such discrimination and persecution, and many remained there. At this time, Rabbi Pincus established contacts, falsified documents, and raised funds to help Germans who wanted to immigrate. In 1936, Fritz, his wife Lotte, his newborn son Michael, and his mother received a calling letter from their brother Kurt, who had arrived in Brazil in 1934 to work and stayed there. On Brazilian soil, Rabbi Pincus continued his efforts so that the largest number of German Jews could immigrate and remain in Brazil. In addition to helping to pay for the stay of Jews who obtained provisional visas, he accepted the task of receiving those who arrived. In 1936, the Congregação Israelita Paulista, CIP, as Rabbi Resnick told us, was established. It was an institution that gave continuity to the Paulista Jewish Society, established a few years previously to receive German Jews in São Paulo, and carried out the work by the Commission of Assistance to the Israeli Refugees of Germany, the CARIA. Religious Judaism that embodied modernity and tradition would be Fritz Pincus' most powerful tool for encouraging a new, active, and comforting Jewish life. Members of his congregation waited for refugees, mostly Germans and Italians, at the port of Santos. It's about 1 hour driving from São Paulo. Sheltering them, helping them to get work and keep their children safe in the early years of their life in Brazil. Actually, I've heard this story from many people in my congregation, how important to them was when they arrived from Hamburg to São Paulo, that they were still inside the ship, fearing, very frightened about their future. And someone from the congregation got inside the ship to tell them, you are not alone. In German, the language that they knew. They were coming to a place totally strange to them, totally new to them, without any connection in Brazil. So this work of welcoming refugees that this congregation did during Second World War and right after was very, very, very important. In 1946, in keeping with his academic background, Pincus established, together with Professor Eurípides Simões de Paula, the Department of Oriental Letters at University of São Paulo, which would include the then existing Arabic language chair next door and a chair for Hebrew studies. Pincus did not sever his relationship with post-war Germany. He sought some kind of resumption of ties with his native country through interreligious dialogue and his constant visits to that country. Rabbi Pincus' efforts resulted in the largest Jewish congregation founded by German Jewish immigrants in the mid-20th century, the largest synagogue in Latin America until this very day. Redemocratization, police and masses, and political representation is the next part. With the end of World War II and Brazil's participation in the victorious Allied military campaign against the Axis, the dictatorial government of Getúlio Vargas fell, and the country redemocratized itself, holding democratic elections until the interruption of the civil military coup in 1964. The mobilization and campaigning during the war and the Holocaust, and political activism, including Zionism, created a new political consciousness in Jewish communities in the post-war era. In a mass democracy, the needs and expectations were no longer those of an immigrant group, but of a sector of society defining its public space. In São Paulo, the Jewish Federation of the State of São Paulo was founded in 1946, initially to organize post-war immigration, but later assumed the work of organization and political representation of the community. In other states of the country, communities have created local federations. At the time, the election of political representatives linked to the community of the most varied tendencies, including the Communist Party, was banned and categorized as illegal in the Eurico Dutra government. In 1948, the Confederation of Representative Entities of the Jewish Collective of Brazil was founded after the Jewish Brazilian Confederation, what is called today CONIB. Immigrants from 1950s and the new profile of entities. Immigration to Brazil continued after World War II in smaller numbers when compared to 1910 and 1930, and adding to communities that were already structured in São Paulo and other capitals in a period of intense urbanization, industrialization, and growth of cities as São Paulo, which in 1954 celebrated 400 of its founding, 400 years. São Paulo celebrated 400 years of its founding, and continued to be a pole that attracted immigrants and migrants from various regions of the country. Between 1956 and 1957, about 2,500 Jews from Egypt entered Brazil, mostly fleeing the Suez War in 19 1956. After the creation of Israel in 1948 and the conflict between Israel and the Arab countries, the Jewish communities in the Arabic countries began to become increasingly unsustainable, and Brazil received immigrants from countries like Syria and Lebanon between the 1950s and 1970s. Jews from Hungary immigrated to Brazil in 1956 as a result of the intensification of Soviet repression and invasion in that country. Important organizations were also founded after the war. In addition to the Israeli Federation of the State of São Paulo, the Hebraica Club in São Paulo, which is a gorgeous JCC inside the city, outdoors with 5 swimming pools, tennis courts, a very beautiful place. And in the same year, the Brazilian Jewish Cultural Institute was created, bringing together leftist militancy in the Jewish community of São Paulo. In 1957, CIP, my current congregation, inaugurated its new and modern synagogue. In 1961, the Mosaic program was inaugurated on the television, a Jewish TV show, maintained by the Jewish community, a milestone in the new times of modernity and public exposure of community activities in mass media. The Jewish community continued to cement its identity with the formation of important new organizations. In the 1960s and 70s, a number of new entities continued to be founded with broad interfaces to society in general. In São Paulo, among others, UNIBS, that is a very important institution of Tzedakah and Tikkun Olam, and Hospital Israelita Albert Einstein, the most important hospital in South America, stays in São Paulo. The Brazil Jewish Historical Archive, now the Documentation Memory Center for the Jewish Museum, due to be inaugurated, was installed, and the Center for Jewish Studies was founded at the University of São Paulo. Jews were active in promoting civil rights and democracy in the years of the civil military dictatorship, which included the closing of the National Congress, arbitrary arrests, torture, and censorship. There is a very, very famous and important story that connects the Jewish community to the broader Brazilian society. The torture and murder of a journalist, Vladimir Herzog, in 1975 in a dope cell, triggered strong reactions to the dictatorship, among them an ecumenical cult in the cathedral with the presence of the Archbishop and the Rabbi Henry Sobel. In particular, Rabbi Sobel refused to accept the official version, which found the journalist's death to be suicide. He insisted on the regular burial of Herzog in the Jewish cemetery. There was no specific Jewish question during the military regime, nor the emergence of an anti-Semitism such as the one existing in the dictatorship of neighboring Argentina. But the Herzog case became a milestone in the beginnings of the slow return to democracy in Brazil, which was finally consolidated with the direct elections for president in 19 88. Today, some of the challenges that I see we face in Brazil are strengthening interreligious dialogue, mainly not with the Catholic community, once this is a dialogue well consolidated, but with evangelicals and Muslims. Intra-religious dialogue, which is much more challenging than inter-religious, the intra-religious dialogue among Jews. Conversions and the who is a Jew question. Marranos, those who are discovering their own Jewish roots and want to come back to the Jewish community. How to accept them, how to welcome them in the synagogue in Brazil is a big question. Interfaith families, gender and sexual orientation issues are some of the central issues debated today in the Jewish community. So the idea now, if you agree, is to open for questions, and I will be very happy to answer to each of them.
Rabbi, can you see the various people when they ask questions so that you could call on them directly? Can you see their names?
Yes, sure, I will.
All right, so how about if someone has a question, if you can just unmute yourself, sort of raise your hand and see if the rabbi can recognize.
So Barbara is the first hand that I see.
Yes, it was a pleasure listening to you. When you mentioned about the Jews that left to come to America, it reminded me of 2004, where we celebrated the 350th anniversary of the first Jews in America. So that was brought back some good memories. Also, you have many people that arrived from Portugal. As you know, in 2015, Portugal passed the law of return. So do you have a number of congregants that applied? Because as of November of this past year, about 23,000 people were granted. You have to be a descendant of Sephardic Judaism. So do you know anything about the law of return?
Yes, my current congregation in São Paulo is Ashkenazic. So we have almost no Portuguese or Spanish Jews in my synagogue. They all come from Germany, Poland, Russia, etc. But among the Sephardic congregations, there are many people getting their Portuguese passports. Yes, Roberta.
Oh, hi. I wanted to welcome you to our congregation, and
Thank you so much.
I very much have enjoyed your talk. I was wondering how many Jews are there in Brazil today, approximately, and are they mostly located in São Paulo?
Yeah, great question. Thank you, Roberta. We are talking today about 100,000 Jews, and 60% in São Paulo, the majority of them in São Paulo. So about 60,000 Jews in São Paulo, 20,000 Jews in Rio de Janeiro, and 20,000 Jews spread all around Brazil. So total about 100,000.
And also, do you feel in Brazil today that there's a lot of rising anti-Semitism?
No, I do not feel anti-Semitism in Brazil at all. But what I do feel that because of our current government, there is a rising of ultra-nationalism, which affects Jews and which affect human beings that believe in democracy and freedom. but I do not feel something specific towards Jews. On the contrary, our president says he's very, very close to Israel. He likes Israel very much, and he is a friend with Jews. Do you know that that story from somewhere?
We're familiar. Thank you.
Yes, Florence.
Marilyn, can you hear me?
Yes.
What is the major language in Brazil now?
We speak Portuguese because we were a Portuguese colony. So we speak Portuguese in Brazil. And unfortunately, the majority of the Brazilians do not speak a second language. The majority of Brazilians only speak Portuguese. Only those who can afford to go to a private school get the chance to learn a second language as Spanish or English. But the majority of Brazilians only speak Portuguese. Florence, anything else? You need to unmute yourself.
Okay, speak about when the Nazis came into Brazil after the Second War, what the reaction of the community was. Did they know about it? Are you familiar with what I'm talking about?
Yes, I'm familiar. Actually, they did not talk about that on the very period in which it was happening. They found it afterwards. So it was not so frequent as it was in other countries, as Argentina, for instance.
Oh, yeah.
But today we know that many Nazi leaders came to Brazil, including Joseph Mengele, who died in Brazil. Joseph Mengele died in Brazil, but we only got to know that after his death.
There was a film called The Boys from Brazil.
Yes.
I don't know. Yeah, that talked about that.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, Florence. Important questions. Gail and Mel.
Okay, so a couple of things. First of all, if anyone, probably the best book on the Spanish Inquisition was written by Netanyahu's uncle, who was a professor at Cornell. So you can get that. Number two, if we can see in the back, yeah. If you can see the picture in the background, there is a ship there, because I build model ships. That ship is called the São Miguel, and it was built in 1519. It was a Caraca Atlantica, Portuguese ship, and the prototype of a ship that would have carried the Jews to Brazil.
Wow, very interesting.
Can you see
Thank
it?
you very much. Yes.
Yeah.
Yep,
So,
that's beautiful.
yeah. So
Beautiful,
anyway,
really
it actually definitely did go with Cortez to Mexico, but then it went back to Portugal and was a type of ship. In English, it's called a carack, but in Portuguese, it's a caraca.
In Portuguese, it's called caravela.
Oh,
Caravela.
okay.
Beautiful.
Yeah. Great. Thank you.
Mhm.
Jack,
Yes,
I'm
sir.
very, very happy to see you here.
It's good to be here. It's good to be seen. Thank you for your talk. I really enjoyed it very much. My question is, how many other types of synagogues are there in Sao Paulo? Yours is egalitarian, conservative. How many Orthodox, Reformed? How large are those congregations, please?
Great question. There are about 50 synagogues in São Paulo, but only 10%, about 5, are non-Orthodox. All the
Mostly
other 45 are Orthodox synagogues.
Wow, most of them are
And
Orthodox.
in Brazil, we do not have modern Orthodoxy or open Orthodoxy. So they are all ultra Orthodoxy, like Beit Chabad and Sephardic Orthodoxy. We have only about 5 synagogues that are egalitarian and that they are connected to the Reform or to the conservative movements.
Thank you for that.
So,
Yes, please. Yes,
Nora.
yes, Nora.
So is the society in Brazil egalitarian?
This is a great question. We normally see the pictures of Carnival, and
Yeah.
we think of a very, very open and modern society. But it's not the case. The majority of Brazilians are very, very conservative with a small c. And because of the influence of Catholic Church, still in the small cities all over the country, the priest is the authority. And there is a very, very important influence of the Catholic Church and now of evangelicals over the population. So I wouldn't say that Brazil is a progressive country. There are some progressive silos.
Michael Frank.
Michael, please.
Yes, Rabbi, you mentioned the governor, anti-Semitic governor who took a bribe to let the Jews in. Who was that?
I have his name, and I need to confess that Lisa helped me with that information.
Okay.
I will check his name.
It's Michael, it's Peter
Peter
Stuyvesant.
Yes.
It was Peter Stuyvesant.
Peter Stuyvesant, I mean.
Right, was the governor.
There was Stuyvesant.
Yes.
Peter Stuyvesant in New York let the Jews in.
Yeah, but after taking a bribe. Okay,
Right.
I thought it was him. I wanted to confirm.
It was. He hated to do it, but he loved money more.
Yeah. Thank you.
Sandy, do you want to ask something?
There was also pressure from Holland, where the Jews had friends on the Dutch trading companies who told him let them in because they're going to bring more money into the colony.
And they actually brought.
Right, when it came to New York, right.
And they named a high school after him.
That's right.
Yes, Marion.
The question I have is, why are you leaving Brazil?
Great question. Because my family and I think that there is a larger world out there that we need to get to know, and there are many opportunities for us outside Brazil. I have already worked for 20 years in the same congregation. So we think that moving to another place, to another country and to another congregation will allow us to have new experiences in each and every level. We will allow the girls to study English and to study in different schools. We will allow Juliana to find different job opportunities, and we will allow me to be in a new congregation and to learn different things.
Very good. Thank you. I wish you a lot of luck.
Thank you, Marion.
We look forward to having you in the congregation.
Okay, me too. Looking forward. Thank you. Is there any other question?
Steve Molis.
Yes, I do have a question. I've never asked this
Stephen,
question.
do you still have questions?
Yeah, I do. I actually do have questions. But as usual, my question is of Juliana, not you.
Okay, great.
So I've never asked this question of you. How did the two of you meet?
Huh?
Como a gente se conheceu?
Thank you, Stephen. This is true. You have never asked this. We met in São Paulo. We came from different congregations. My family comes. They're not Germany. They are from Russia, from Poland, and they came to another neighborhood and to another synagogue, not the same as Michel's. but we had friends in common, and they introduced us, and they said, "Oh, you're gonna be very good friends. Maybe you can go together, and maybe you can be girlfriend and boyfriend, and you can date." And we've tried. We met, and we said, "No, we are only friends. We don't want to date, but we want to be friends." And we were friends for more than 5 years. I used to have my boyfriends, and he used to have his girlfriends, and we used to go out as couples.
That's funny.
Close friends, until one day that we traveled to Spain together. We were enrolled in this interfaith dialogue as friends. And he told me, "Oh, there's going to be a conference there. Would you like to join me?" And I said, "Yes, let's go together as friends." And in Barcelona, we realized that we were more than friends after many years. And then we started dating. And Michel told me, "All right, but I want to move to Israel because I want to become a rabbi." And I said, "All right, but I'm gonna find a play, something for me." And then I was enrolled in the master's degree at the Hebrew University, and we moved to Israel together. But before our marriage, we lived there for 4 years. And when we came back to Brazil, we decided that we should get married, and Michel was already almost a rabbi, and then we got married. It was 15 years ago.
So it all started in Barcelona. The responsibles are Gaudí and Miró.
So then it's not too different than what happens in America. Thank you so much.
Gail and Mel.
Please introduce us to those beautiful young girls.
Sure. Please.
I am the youngest one.
Yes, you're a beautiful young girl too. Hello, sweetheart.
Who are you? What's your name?
Naomi.
Naomi, and how old are you?
I'm 7.
7, and you have a sister someplace there?
Yes.
She's not here, Mark.
But she disappeared.
How old is she? How old is your sister?
It's 11.
Oh, wow. Well, you're beautiful young girls.
And I have to tell you that you can take the vaccine for COVID in Brazil. You will not turn into a crocodile.
Yes.
Nice meeting you and your sister.
Nice to meet you too.
I'm going to go learn some Portuguese now.
And Gail speaks fluent Spanish. So
I'm going to try to learn some
you
Portuguese.
speak Spanish?
Yeah, we do speak Spanish. Yes.
Rabbi Vicky Graber had a question.
Yes, please.
Hi, Rabbi. I wanted to ask why you picked New York to be your next rabbinate. How did you?
Thank you, Vicky. Because I think that New York is where contemporary Judaism happens, and I think this is the most important pole of critical and contemporary Judaism in the world. I think there are many opportunities in New York of exchanging experiences with different colleagues, keep studying in rabbinical schools. There is no rabbinical school at all in São Paulo, and in New York you've got many rabbinical schools from different movements. And so I think it's a beautiful place to be in order to keep learning and growing.
That's true.
Yeah.
And I know that your wife likes museums, and that
she likes museums. Yes, she likes museums and universities.
Right.
Do you have some museums and universities in New York?
Oh yes. That's our specialty.
Thank you, Vicky. Yes. Michael and Nora, I think.
This is a silly question. What is the connection between the COVID vaccine and crocodiles?
Because our president said that he is afraid that someone who will take the vaccine will turn into a crocodile.
Oh, I should have known. Okay.
Yeah. Unfortunately, he says things like that, and it makes part of the population believe that vaccination is a bad thing. So something that you are aware from somewhere too.
Is he against?
Is he a relative of Trump?
Yeah.
He's a big fan of Trump.
There you go.
Yes, that I heard. Is he against vaccinations?
He is against. Yeah, he won't declare that he's against vaccination, but he said he wants once he have had already COVID, he doesn't need it and he's not going to take it.
Thank you.
And he says that the best way not to be ill is to get COVID. If you don't want to get ill, you get COVID and you're gonna be all right.
Got
He says things like that, like very foolish things.
Anyone else?
He's also a big friend of Bibi.
Yes. Yes. He's a big fan of Bibi and a big fan of Trump. Barbara.
Wait till you see what the new JTS, the Jewish Theological Seminary, looks like. I was just there last month. There's been a lot of reconstruction, a beautiful atrium and libraries. I hope you do have the opportunity to go to JTS once it's reopened. And as you know, Torah Fund, which is the dedicated philanthropy of Women's League, raises money for the JTS and the other seminaries around the world for conservative and Masorti Judaism.
Thank you, Barbara. I've heard about the reconstructions and like to see it. JTS is a very, very important institution, and I had the opportunity to study Talmud there once during my first sabbatical in New York.
Yeah, we had a trip planned back in March to go on a tour, but of course we never did. So I hope one day that we could all go on a tour of JTS.
Sure, let us organize it again. They have a beautiful library with very, very rare books. And the originals from Cairo, from the Gniza of Cairo are there. So they have important things.
Let me say something that there's in their library. There is a letter from a rabbi who was in Amsterdam by the time they were in Brazil, in the north of Brazil. Can you hear me with the mask?
Yes.
So they have the original letter. When the community first built the synagogue there, the first synagogue in America, and they didn't have any rabbi. All the rabbis were in Amsterdam or in other places. And they were dealing with day-to-day questions like with whom someone could marry to or couldn't marry or could be buried, and things from the rabbinic law, from the Jewish law that they couldn't solve themselves. And they used it to exchange letters between the north of Brazil, Recife, and Amsterdam. And there are some letters, and one of these letters is in JTS, and it's really nice. Because they asked, now we are here in Recife and we don't know what to do. Can you help us to solve this problem, this halachic problem? And then the rabbi would write him back and would say if it's possible, it wasn't possible. So it's there, this letter, which is it has a special value for us from Brazil, and it's here in New York.
Rabbi,
yes.
I'm curious, who did you study Talmud with? I'm just curious. Do you remember who were the teachers were?
I don't remember his name now, but I will. I can check and get back to you. Yeah, I don't remember. It was 8 years ago. I do not remember anymore. Sorry.
Okay, not major.
Okay.
Rabbi,
Yes.
do the top colleges, universities, law schools, medical schools limit Jewish application by Jewish students?
In Brazil, no. No. We didn't have an official anti-Semitic trend in Brazil. So yeah, it didn't exist in an official way. What happens a lot in Brazil, the lack of knowledge about Judaism leads to prejudice, because there are many cities in the country that there are no Jews at all. There are many Brazilians who have never seen a Jew in their life. So they do not know anything about Jews and about Judaism, and it leads to prejudice. So I do not recognize anti-Semitism in Brazil, but I do recognize prejudice that comes from the lack of knowledge.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, I've been told by those at a higher pay grade than me that I should wrap things up. But I will tell you, if you enjoyed Rabbi Schlesinger's talk, his wife will be giving another lunch and learn in the future. I just got the official okay for that a little while ago. So we all look forward to hearing from her and perhaps from your daughters as well sometime. Thank you very much for the talk. And I hope the rest of your stay is as hopeful and promising as today's talk. Thank you.
Thank you very much for having me.
Thank you.
For having me
You only
here.
give us a Portuguese class?
Yeah, we will open
No,
a
we will-
Portuguese class.
We want
in the
Naomi to teach
congregation.
it.
Yeah.
Yes, I'm gonna teach you.
Our goal is into 3 years, everybody that is a member of the congregation will speak Portuguese.
Don't bet on. Don't
Like it or not.
Excellent.
Thank you for having me here.
Thank you.
Rabbi.
Thank you.
Yes,
Rabbi.
Good luck.
Bye.
Bye.